Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I am your other host, Tyler.
Tyler the Gorgeous. The Gorge.
The Gorge. Thanks. You really ruined it there. Really, absolutely ruined it. Welcome back, folks, to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. It's been a while. A long while since we've had beer.
Yes.
And even longer since we've had a sweet Marzen style. I believe we had this one last year. This is from Einger. This is a Bavarian style festival lager. I am almost positive we had this last year or something very, very similar. But I don't care. It's that time of year, and I'm going to have a nice malty beer with my brother here.
And while you pour that, I will talk a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the good stuff. If you want to skip to the good stuff, go ahead. We have it marked. So you will have noticed that we have slowed down exponentially over this period. We're going to move to a format that's a little bit more in line with our passions and what we like about the podcast, and that aligns a little better with our current schedules. We both have some personal projects.
Schedules being children.
Yes. One of us has children.
They'll change your life.
And one of us is trying to work on a couple other projects. So with that in mind, we'll be moving to a slower rollout. This will kind of be 4 times a year, maybe 5. It depends what we're looking at. Of course, we'll keep our October special. It's our favorite part.
Yeah.
But the episodes will be a little bit more in depth. They're going to be a little bit less review focused, what we like about it, what was cool about it, and a little bit more of those things where we try to dig into what's going on here, finding trends, talking about those trends, playing through games that are going to generate discussion that's not just about the game. So that's what we're gonna be aiming for. In fact, our next episode that we're going to do is going to be pretty fun. We're going to go back and play the game that inspired this format in the first place, all the way back when we were first practicing the podcast before we even had our first episode, the missing first episode, and it will be Prey. And we will, we're kind of keeping the original recording in our back pocket, maybe for if anybody actually starts listening to this, we can use that as a little fun thing on a Patreon or something one day. But in the meantime, we are going to revisit Prey, which
and Mooncrash
finally, which will
we should just do that first, get it out of the way, just in case something goes awry. We should get Mooncrash out of the way.
Well, I mean, the way Mooncrash works, we could very easily just play Mooncrash while we're playing Prey. It's that kind of a game.
Fair enough.
So, and I was doing some research. It looks amazing.
Okay,
I'm a huge immersive sim guy.
Dink this real quick.
Yes.
Dink
Cheers.
this
Dink.
so I can sink it, bro.
Smells like an Oktoberfest.
Yes. We're not going to go in too much depth. It's an Oktoberfest. I have 3 varieties here. It's nice and malty.
Which is most Octobery?
Probably this one.
Prey. This will probably finally put Prey firmly amidst my all-time favorites. It has climbed every time I've played it, which is only two so far. But the more I think about it, I love this game.
It a second time?
Yeah, the time I played it with you was I didn't finish it the first time, but I played through a good chunk of it.
That sounds. I think I did that as well.
It's
that's right.
A lot of people bounce off Prey. We'll talk about why probably, but in my opinion, I've been watching Charlatan Wonder a lot more. He's all about immersive sims, and he puts it in his top 3 immersive sims ever.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is among the greats, it's one of the lighter ones. It's, like Deus Ex is doing a lot more.
Sure, it's less emergent, but still incredibly emergent, and some of the best level design apparently. Lots of great stuff.
Design. And you can drag dead bodies into a big sphere and close a door on it.
Yeah, just
and
so
then
many
you melt
fun
them into
things.
little cubes of jelly you can eat.
It's just so delightful. So we'll be getting into that, talking about why it's so important to the cast, but also why it's just such a bizarre game that's hard to talk about and hard for people to not bounce off of. But the people who have played it and replayed it and engaged with it consider it one of the masterpieces.
Where roughly do you rank it these days?
I could check, but it's in the top 30 right now.
Okay.
So it's very high.
Up there for me as well.
Yeah, it's very high, but I think playing it again will just keep watching it tinker up that ladder. So it's a great game. Excited to talk about that. But that's going to be our new format. So fewer episodes, but much more in depth, much more robust, and we're excited to
and focused on a little more as well. Like we might this month was supposed to be a few different episodes that we recorded back to back. We're just sort of putting them together here. But let's say down the road, we decide to do an episode on Deus Ex. We're probably going to play 1 or 2 Deus Ex and another sim, and then release them all in the month. We'll record them, take care of them, and then release them all back to back.
Yeah. And if we feel like there's some interesting way to talk about them in tandem, we might just smush them all up into one big one and talk about it like that. They
go very, very well together for reasons we really don't have to point out, but we probably will.
We will. We will point them out because we are pedantic busybodies.
That's right.
Anyway, excited to talk about these games. So let's launch it, baby. We're talking about the 2 big horror remakes this year, Dead Space and Resident Evil 4. We were going to talk about 3 because we just really hoped the stars would align and we could talk about all 3 this year. But Silent Hill 2 will have to wait until next year. I'm sure we will both be playing it. We probably won't do a full episode on it, but maybe a little blurb in one of the other episodes.
I will definitely be playing it. My greatest regret so far, there's plenty of games I have not finished during this podcast. That's number one regret for me.
Yeah, dude, it's just so you as well. I'm very excited for Silent Hill 2, but it actually doesn't fit as well as these 2 games do together. It would have been the outlier, for sure. It would have...
Well, the theme would have been remakes more broadly.
Yeah, but these, we're going to be able to dig into some, basically just...
I mean, these are feeding off each other in ways that are so immediately apparent.
Apparent.
They're parallel games. They go very well together. They're doing a lot of similar things slightly differently than the other. In ways that pay off in different ways.
The best way of explaining it.
They're both fantastic.
Yes, they are both fantastic. So we're going to start talking just about both. We will dig into the details of each, but again, this isn't really review, right? We're just talking about these games and survival horror in general. So I want to talk about survival horror and action horror. I think might be the better moniker for this at this point. When people think about a game like Amnesia, some people would go, "Oh, that's a survival horror game," and it's like because you have inventory management, and it's like really that's not what the term has become. I get it. Genre naming is stupid and changes every day, but when you think survival horror,
I definitely wouldn't.
You're thinking
it's a survival horror.
You're thinking, and really until Resi 7, you were thinking third-person shooter action horror game.
Yeah,
that's what you were thinking every time,
and a huge focus on inventory and puzzles. Not specifically inventory in the way that Resident Evil 4 does it, but just this
limitation.
Very limited inventory and key items, revisiting areas.
You don't have 666 reserve bullets like in Doom. Yeah. It's just like...
Or 2 bullets like in Amnesia.
Yeah.
That's it. It's so different.
Yeah, completely.
The scarcity in Amnesia games are taken to a different level, and they're doing very different things.
And many of the things you have are pretty useless. Again, Capcom, the vets at Capcom would describe an action game as a game where you have combat against enemies. Like, that's an action game, like you are fighting an enemy that is actively moving toward you and trying to hurt you. So, going back to the classics, Ghosts and Goblins and those kinds of games, those are all action games. Mega Man. And they would lump Resident Evil, even the first Resident Evil, they called it in-house an action game.
That's wild to me.
But if you look at the design and what it grew out of, sure, everybody will reference Sweet Home as the influence, but really when you look at the actual game design influences on Resident Evil, it's all action games the whole way back. I mean, the method, the way you're moving through the environments, it's very much inspired by action games. And you can see that obviously most in Resi 4 and onward, but these are games where you have a huge focus on action, and it's wild how much is going on at any given time, even if you go back and play the Resident Evil 1 remake on GameCube, it's going to be far more puzzle focused, far more trying to find a way to move through environments, kind of like the 2 remake. It's more about moving through the environments a lot of the time than it is about truly taking out the enemies. So that's there. But like you said, the inventory, like, you are capable of taking down these creatures. In Amnesia, it's like, no, you just have to live.
Yeah,
And
like a bullet in really any of the Amnesia games is there to stun an enemy so you can get away. You can close some door so it can't follow you, get to a safe room somewhere. You're not really killing much of anything.
locker horror.
Sure.
Locker horror, I think, has been uncharitably called. I think adventure horror, right? You can see the lineage of Amnesia coming from adventure games,
Absolutely.
where it's about environmental puzzle solving and storytelling. What Amnesia brought to the table was excellent horror pacing and ideas, and I guess the physics and using that interestingly in that setting as well. Really, that's all it did. It didn't do much besides doing that and just being incredibly well made.
Yeah.
Obviously, but that's it. And you can see the lineage, right? Like if I look at Resident Evil 4, I can go back and compare that to, you can really follow that sucker all the way down the line and find its heart in the same games that Capcom is talking about. It's the guys who led these 2D action games in the arcade. Those guys are the guys directing games like Resi 4. Those are the guys making these things. And you can see that. I just don't think there's anything comparable there. This is an action horror game. And
Sure.
anything like Outlast or all these other games, they're just adventure horror. Outlast
I think
is pushing it.
So then what is survival horror?
Well, I mean, that's the question. I would personally lean it more toward the definition of action horror at that point. But really for no reason other than that Resident Evil has won that crown as the survival horror game. The granddaddy.
I mean, you're calling it an action horror game. I mean, that's totally fair. It seems like, just based on the little bit that I played of Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill 3 seems pretty similar. I understand there's a bunch of spin-offs, just like there are of Resident Evil, but the core games of Silent Hill seem to be doing things very similarly to the first Resident Evil, the second, whatever I'm talking about right now. Anyway, those seem to be very different than these. So has Resident Evil and Dead Space, have they gone and done their own thing, and it's safe to call those action horror, and survival horror is the Silent Hill type games? And what's the one that came out 2 years ago from Bloober Team? What was that called? The Medium.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That's not really an action game.
Yeah, correct.
But it's not adventure horror either. So do we now have a separate category?
I would put the Medium firmly in adventure horror, but it's the other ones that you mentioned, like the Resi ones, Silent Hill 1 through 3. Those are the ones that are a little bit more interesting because we haven't had Resident Evil 4 come along yet and really put the focus on you are facing enemies, and that is what is going to be scary. The tension of them moving toward you and that stuff. Really, when in Resident Evil 1 through 3, it really is about moving through the environments more than it is about facing them. I'd say the one difference would be the boss fights and the boss design really, really kind of ground each section of the game with an action moment, right? As you're moving through it. I don't know, the tooling and how you I think of Resident Evil 2 Remake, that I would call that an action horror game. Like, yes, it's more about that. But if you look at the classics, it's really just a limitation of the perspective and the perspective and the controller, and we haven't quite progressed to where, because that's the whole purpose of the Resi 2 remake, was let's take this same feel, this same game, and remake it. Not just like we're going to take modern innovations in gameplay, but we're going to use those things to deliver the same experience.
Yeah, I was just this very second thinking about the RE2 remake. If we were to make a delineation between something like Silent Hill, those mainline Silent Hill games, the Medium, and Resident Evil, Dead Space, these things, action, survival. There's nothing. Let me preface this by saying I've only played the Jill campaign. there's nothing that does both of them so perfectly as Resident Evil 2.
Yes.
It's hard. It's actually, I agreed with you saying I would call it an action horror, but it's also doing everything else survival horror is doing.
It's great.
Resident Evil and Dead Space are not doing that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, it is a totally different type of horror. But again, I'd say there's enough action elements, and you can see I could more easily trace the lineage of a game like Resident Evil 1 and 2, the originals, toward those action games that came before them on the 2D systems and the arcades and stuff like that. Then I could trace it to an adventure or those kinds of games. I think it's doing a lot of those things, but I still think the heart of it, and when you come into those boss fights, that's really where I feel like you can see what the core gameplay that they are delivering is built on top of this combat experience. But it hasn't quite reached the point like Resi 4 where the combat experience is the horror. Mm-hmm. It hasn't quite reached that. The horror is moving through that, using combat to move through this environment and solve these puzzles and try to get out, right? So yeah, I really don't know. Again, defining genres is stupid. It's hard. It's just trying to be helpful.
It is hard.
But survival horror has either become too broad, but if we include games like Amnesia, or we have this problem of, okay, yeah, that's a survival horror game, but when you say that to someone who just plays games, they're going to go, oh, like Resident Evil. That's what they're going to think every time.
Yes.
Which is fine to have variation and nuance in a category, but
that's the more, I think that's the more useful terminology to use. What is the average consumer going to use? Because you and I know what we mean when we say it, how we say it. We understand the context.
They're just scrolling through the Steam page and seeing the genre tag.
Correct. So that's why I do think it's kind of silly to harp on genres so much. I have harped on genres myself, like calling Tetris a puzzle game. That's nonsense to me. Tetris and Professor Layton are both puzzle games. That's ridiculous to me. But calling Resident Evil 1 and Devil May Cry 5 action games, that's a little silly to me.
Yeah, action. Again, I don't think action is a good genre descriptor. I would consider it a core building block. I've talked about this a little bit before. Just as core as something like puzzle, or something like there's not really another good one that comes to the top of my head, but it's as core as like, being able to move your arms in a real life sport. Like, it's that core.
That's an arm game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's that core. Like, action really just means, like, if you get down to it, it's something that relies on reactive inputs and being able to play off of, mechanically play off of something that's actively moving toward you. It's not as compared to a puzzle game or a JRPG where it is truly turn-based, or a puzzle game where you, unlike Tetris, where you have the time to actually think about this puzzle and then try to implement it in an interesting way. Obviously, there's still some mechanical input there, but right, it's that broad if you really want to think about it like that. So you have to start distilling these things down. Well, how is that being used? What is the experience? And that's where we hit genres, right? Action adventure is the dumbest thing in the world. It's literally just an adventure game that has more active action-y components, right? It's Uncharted as an adventure game would just be missed, but with Nathan Drake, right? Like, action adventures means, he's got a gun now, and he's shooting people. It's a third-person shooter. Like, that's actually way more helpful. A third-person shooter adventure game, but that's so clunky and annoying.
Just like Metroidvania.
But just because you like Uncharted 4, Uncharted 4 does not mean you're going to like God of War.
Yeah.
Right? But those are both technically action adventure games, and that's what they're labeled everywhere. It's just less helpful.
Wait, God of War
2018 is considered an action adventure game. That's what was put on the Game Awards. Like, the Game Awards labeled it an action adventure.
Do they have a separate action category?
They do, but I mean, that's just like, they don't have an action adventure category. That should just be the game of the year category, because that's always what wins, is an action adventure game. But they have an action category, which is, again, super unhelpful.
Fighting games?
No, they have a fighting games category and an action category. So action is like what they mean is stuff like Devil May Cry, but that's not helpful either. Like
Devil May Cry. Would you put in that category for
would I
game
put
of
or
the
would
year?
they put?
Both, I guess. Would you put something like Dark Souls, Lies of P, up there with Devil May Cry in the same awards category?
So because of the way they have it structured, I believe they would. I need to go back and look. They might put it under RPG. They don't though. Like action RPG has become its own thing, really, and as it should. Action RPGs are fantastic. It's one of
It'd be very weird to have in the same category.
Mass Effect 2, Dark Souls 3, and Devil May Cry 5. Yeah.
Well, wait, Devil May Cry 5. Why would that? Oh, action.
I just mean like
RPG.
Yeah.
As action games.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like RPG again means so many different things now. There was that list that you showed me ages ago, like the top 100 RPGs. And they put like Horizon Zero Dawn up there.
Yeah.
It's like, look, just because it has elements of progression that are not based on active, like you could call Devil May Cry an RPG at that point because you spend currency to unlock new moves. That's technically not relying on your action skills. You know, that's now a new component to the game. Like, oh, if I buy this one first, then I'll have a better chance of beating this
Call
next
of Duty
enemy.
does that.
Yeah, so like you can't like
You get experience and you unlock perks in Call of Duty. That's why Skyrim is the way it is, because of Call of Duty.
correct. Yeah.
So you can't call Call of Duty an RPG.
Yeah.
Don't.
Please don't. So all that to say, I think the way to make genre helpful is to
Stop talking about it.
is to talk about if you're going to carve out things based on genre, you have to think about the purpose. So for Steam, right? Steam, you can be very loose. Talk about what kind of game it is. You have so many tags, genre tags in Steam. Call Uncharted 4 a third-person shooter action adventure game. That covers, because when someone goes, oh, I like action games, and they go look, oh, it's a third-person shooter, I don't really like those. Like, that's more helpful for a consumer. When you're talking about like Game Awards or something, like follow the trends of what's going on right now. Like action RPGs, sure, in 20 years might not be as big as they are now. Maybe not, right? But after Dark Souls and Mass Effect, they got huge, right? Mass Effect and Dark Souls blew that genre up. So it's a huge, significant deal right now. So just say, yeah, sure, action RPGs. Like, let's talk about those. Yeah. Genres are stupid. We all know they are. But unfortunately, they are more helpful than they are not helpful. Than they are unhelpful.
They're more helpful than they are unhelpful.
I think typically
They're helpful to the average consumer. The way you and I have started talking about
is absolutely stupid and insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just dumb. And that's why we've seen this trend of calling something a Souls-like or calling something what's the other big one? Metroidvania, right? Because I want an experience like that one. That's what the consumer is thinking. That's what someone who wants to buy a game or the player's thinking. I want to play a game like that. That's really all they care about, right? If they play a game they really like, they're going to go, I want to play a game like that.
Everyone should start smoking cigars. Okay?
Okay. This is
All right.
great. I'm on board so far.
Yeah. You won't like it at first, but have another one and maybe one more. And then go to a cigar shop and tell the person what you liked about this, what you liked about that, and let them guide you towards a new cigar to try. They're not going to say, oh, this is a Souls-like cigar.
Yeah, correct.
You said you wanted something that's a little spicy, a little lighter. You like this particular shape. Can you give me something similar? Because I want to explore those, whatever those are.
Yeah.
And that combination of things doesn't have a name. So
It's the same. It's the same with wine.
Want, and anyone on the internet can help you find that thing rather than say, can you give me a good Souls-like?
Yeah. And one of my favorite
someone
things,
might give you Hollow Knight.
Someone will give you Hollow Knight.
Yeah. Which is stupid.
Yeah. And so here's what I think. It's a great way to take this part of the conversation. I don't want to go tell someone, oh, I liked this game. And they go, oh, well, that's this genre. It's the third-person hack-and-slash adventure game. Here are the games that fit under that category. It's like, I don't want that. What I would love, it's the same with wine. If I look at a wine menu with wines that I've seen 10,000 times before, I know the person who put this together has really just doesn't really care that much about wine. They just want to put the usual suspects on there. Versus I go to just a couple weeks ago, I went to a little market that had one little tiny wall of wine with some of the most interesting, curated picks I have ever seen. And I can go to that person and say, hey, I like this kind of wine. What would you recommend? And the guy has a full story on 3 bottles on why, and none of it has to do with like a little bit of flavor, like just flavor to, oh, I like reds that are pretty bold. It's like, okay, oh, well, this grower tried this, and this is the way it turned out. It's like, give me a curated artisanal recommendation like that any day, because I might find something that's almost nothing like what I asked for, but is completely fresh and completely new, and then sends me down a whole other rabbit hole. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
I remember an old friend of mine was trying to get into video games. This was, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago or so. Hadn't played video games since like 2006. So wanted to start getting into some stuff. I let him borrow, I think 2 consoles. And he had a decent PC to play things on.
Cool.
And he told me about some of the games he played back in the day. Like Elder Scrolls 4. I think he played one of the Resident Evil games. And some other stuff. He gave me some examples. And so I wrote him this list of recommendations, not based on genres, but these things go well together because they're doing this sort of interesting thing with that thing you told me about, whatever you liked about Elder Scrolls or Resident Evil, and they lead into this slightly more complex or more nuanced sort of thing based on these particular aspects. And getting from something like a short hike to Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a testament to
fun to me. I love doing stuff like
genre that. Is what you liked. It has nothing to do with why you liked it. And that's what you want to get to the heart of. If you find someone who knows why you like things and can just recommend, who is very experienced, has played a lot of games, and can just recommend a bunch of games to you, you have found a treasure. Far greater than any AI-generated genre tag recommender. Right? It's just, and it feels so good for both parties when you get to play a game that just hits the mark perfectly for you, that you've never heard of before, never thought you'd ever play. And then, it's even better for the guy who recommended it to see you geek out about it. Right?
It's great.
It's just perfect. It's perfect. Yeah, you've had some.
He's saying this from experience.
Yes. Yes.
Both of us.
Yeah, I can name a few for you. It's great. Great stuff. Yeah, genres are stupid.
Metal Gear Solid 5.
Like Metal Gear Solid 5, dude. Yeah, like Shadow of the Colossus.
Way of the Hunter, because I was currently playing Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yes, dude, it's so good.
Look at these sniping mechanics. I'm doing all of this in Metal Gear Solid 5 right now. Let's play this hunting simulator.
That was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good time. So yeah, I kind of have a couple notes here about just the design of games like this, whatever you want to call them. The games that Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 really, really hit the heart of, right? There are a couple games that people always pull up examples whenever it's like, oh, well, this genre or this idea. It's like, oh, you are talking about games that play like Devil May Cry. It's like you were talking about games that play like Resident Evil 4. Oddly, both came from the same attempt at making Resident Evil 4. So tension through limited resources, right? Leading to interesting decision making instead of just, oh, well, I have this awesome gun that I'm going to keep using. Now it's like, yeah, that enemy seems really tough, but what if there's a tougher one after it? Or even better, when you know it's coming after it. So you can then, oh, do I really want to waste this right now? But there's like 4 of them right in front of me, making you use that weaker weapon against the enemy. Something that, like Doom, the interesting decision comes from, what is the most optimal choice right now, considering what I have? Like each weapon is a tool for a particular situation, and you just have to be fast enough, efficient enough, and smart enough to be able to pull the right one out at the right time while keeping your ammo count up. That's the interesting loop of Doom. Versus a game like this, the loop is, do I have enough ammo for this? I need to conserve this ammo. It's still a tool that is more efficient at one thing or another, but some are just objectively better in every situation anyway. You know, like I can't think of any situation in that game where I would not rather be using the submachine gun than the pistol. Like it has a similar range, a similar, like you can turn it, just tap it so you only shoot once or hold it down and shoot more. It pierces through like 5 enemies fully upgraded.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, by the way, I haven't finished Resident Evil 4. I am on chapter 11 of 16.
He's played enough to
making my way through.
Making my way downtown.
I've not used the submachine gun yet.
I didn't until my second playthrough.
Okay.
I really used it in my second playthrough, and I realized it is fantastic. I really like that gun.
Well, I just upgraded the handgun. Almost
Dude,
completely.
the handgun is the first thing I upgraded all the way. I love the handgun. I love the handgun in this game.
But you'd rather use the submachine gun?
No, I'm just saying there's very rarely any situation where I'd go, oh, I wish I had a pistol instead of a submachine gun right now. They both have great range, and the submachine gun's just a little better. Maybe for an accuracy thing here or there, but again, rarely. If I had infinite ammo for both, I'm pretty much always going to be using a submachine gun. Versus like Doom, I'm pretty much going to have a great use for almost every weapon in that game at any given time. And that's just, survival horror is more about trying to use a thing that might not be as efficient or not as good because you have more ammo for it. And you made that decision, and you might trade off some health, which was it worth it since I lost some health too?
The health is one of the interesting trade-offs. So one of the recent encounters had these 2 really big guys with knives on their hands. They're blind. They can't hear you.
These guys, I hate.
But in this encounter, this is the second time you've encountered one of these guys, and there are 2 of them now. There's a bunch of smaller enemies running around, which do die from these blind guys just raging about. I've been pretty low on ammo for like 3 chapters. I've been having a hard time keeping up. So I could use my shotgun to just sneak up behind, get 2 shots in, and they're dead. But my shotgun ammo is really scarce. So I've got this other gun that's a little harder for me to hit. I'm not very good at sniping moving targets in close range.
Oh, dude.
But I've got a rifle.
And the regenerators.
3 times the damage on weak spots. So what I traded off, I had a lot of health items. So what I traded off was I would shoot one of the bells that's in the corner, and the guys would rush over, and I'd sit there and get hit like 2 or 3 times by the small guys. Then I would get 2 shots in and kill one of the guys. I'd shoot another bell, trade in some of my health to get hit a couple times by the weak guys, and kill him again.
Yeah.
But I went through 2 health files instead of shotgun.
Yeah,
that's what was more important to me at the time.
And that's what I love about Resi 4, the remake versus the original, is the remake even turns your knife into a resource. Like it understands this resource balancing thing that's going on here.
You know what I wish I was doing the
and
entire
always
time?
What if you don't have a knife and there's somebody throwing something at you and you just really need to parry it away?
I'm so bad at parrying. I forget to parry.
Yeah,
almost every time.
Once you remember to parry, you can really start mowing through enemies because you can just kind of be a little bit more aggressive. You see it's coming, ching, you parry one guy away. He comes back, ching, now he's stunned, so you can stab him. Like it's really good once you get it going.
What I really wish I would have been doing this whole time, it wasn't until chapter 10 or maybe 9 that I started doing this, is not using my weak knives. I've not been hoarding them, which I wish I would have been doing, because you can repair your military knife. But instead I've been saving that so I don't spend the money on it and using my disposable knives. But I think it probably would have been better to do it the other way around. Save those for when I'm in a crazy encounter and my knife is broken.
Well, your knife, especially when you upgrade it, just is so much better. Like it does a lot of damage, like way more than the original, obviously, because now it's not an infinite resource. So that thing's nasty, especially if you knock them down and you just get that stab. It uses a lot of its durability.
Well, not really. Forget it all.
For the weak one.
Oh, the weak one. Yeah. You're lucky to get 2.
Yeah. But like for your big knife, if you have it upgraded and you just like, okay, that's like what, a 12th of my whole thing, and it costs what, like $5,000, I think.
In the so later on, there's some bug enemies. These very large flies. that hide on the ground. They're also like they've got this
Camo.
Yeah, this camo.
I like
ability.
them a lot.
They're pretty cool. It's getting a little weird. Just the bugs and are the alligators still in this?
No.
Okay, interesting that they took those out. Anyway, I just use my knife around those because you can lure them into alleys or hallways, and then they can't really fly. And they just take like 3 knife hits to take down. So I took out about 20 of those guys before my knife broke. So once you upgrade the durability, it is very.
And I was dumb. I didn't do that until my second playthrough. So I played this.
What?
Yeah.
First thing I did, knife all the way.
I know. So I played this game all the way through back when it came out. If it's a Resi game, we aren't waiting. Like, because my wife is just the biggest Resi and Fallout fan on the planet. So I played it back then, but then I replayed it hardcore New Game Plus this time. Had a great time. New Game Plus we'll talk more about that later, but had a great time. I really think I got a lot out of it. I forgot where I was going with that. I brought it up for some reason, but oh yeah, I didn't upgrade my knife until the second playthrough, and then when I did, I got it. Like everything clicked about like how to actually use the knife in the remake. I was like, oh
yeah, I need to just parry.
Yeah, parrying, dude. Oh, it's way too good. It's amazing. I love it so much. Again, because it keeps the pace up, right? Like you can just be a little more aggressive, and then the guy comes in, you parry him away. I love watching people who can parry the chainsaw. It fills me with great joy.
What is there, like a 0.1 second window?
No, I think it's in the lower difficulties, it's a fairly broad window. I think you can be a little pretty loose with it. I'm not sure though. I need to check. Unrelenting pacing, another huge aspect of these games. Like there's always something new that forces you to adapt. Like every little bit, it's either a new environment that forces you to try like engage with an enemy in a unique way, or a brand new enemy, or
and this is way more the case in Dead Space, a mixture of enemies.
Mm-hmm.
New combinations of the. It seems like there's a small number of enemies in Dead Space, but the variety of combinations.
Yes,
what really gets you.
It's the Doom approach, right? Where you made an imp, but now have an imp with a Hell Knight or an imp with this, and you
get used to an imp with a Hell Knight. Well, what if it's 3 imps?
Yeah,
with a Hell Knight.
Yeah, and then what if it's 3 imps and not a Hell Knight, but now it's this other enemy? And it's like it's just so many.
Or what if it's great. Literally any enemy with those stupid guys that crawl around on the ground and have the blade tail? Those are my least favorite ones. I hate them so much.
Yeah, they're definitely harder to deal with in the remake because they're tankier.
All of them are harder to deal with in the remake.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. That is without a doubt. We'll talk about that in a sec too. Action mechanics that don't overpower the player, obviously, but also don't leave them helpless because otherwise tension can be lost. True helplessness is not like Amnesia. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're so helpless in Amnesia." Not really. Like you can block up doors, you can hide. There's options. Like you can watch streamers or anybody who, when they realize they've lost a section, just go fine, whatever, and they'll just drop the controller. All tension is lost. You've lost tension completely. That's why it's such a shame when I see people die to the baby in Resident Evil 8, because that whole environment is designed to make sure you don't die. Right? Because the tension is super high if you get through it without dying. Because that you have no idea the immersion, what has happened hasn't broken. You might not even have a full glimpse of it yet, right? And you've gone through that environment so much that you know it really well. It's really well done. But if you die, that tension's gone immediately. It's such a careful balance. And so you can't be truly helpless ever. Dude, it's so good.
It's crazy.
Love it so much. So I would argue that second thing I brought up, though, the pacing, I think that's everything to a game like this. I've watched a lot of videos about Callisto Protocol after playing Dead Space again. And nobody really brought this up, but I could hear it in all of them. They get bored because there's not that many different enemies. There aren't that many different enemies, and there aren't any really unique. There's a couple. They say there's like 2 or 3 sections that stand out as like, oh, that's a unique, interesting thing. But otherwise, they say it feels very repetitive. I kind of think because it has so few tricks up its sleeve, that pacing dies. Right? Obviously, the combat is a big problem as well, but I think that pacing is a huge aspect because when you think of Resi 4, right, you're introduced to the Ganados, and then there's a lot of them, and then you get the head explodey ones, and then the dogs start showing up, and then you have this lull period, and then you have these 2 chainsaw ladies, and like it might not always be a new enemy, but a new environment, or like you said, a new arrangement. I love the first time that you see the one with its head exploding. It's just coming around the corner, the shadow cast from the fire during the ritual they just performed on him. You're like, oh my gosh, you like take him down. And then I don't remember if this is the case in normal difficulty, but when I replayed on hardcore, I went on the corner and there's another one right there, and you shoot him and his head explodes. You're like, again, what? And it's just coming at you.
I feel like they were immediately introduced as a normal enemy.
Okay, yeah.
At that point.
Yeah. And so it was just, little mini set pieces almost so carefully crafted. I think pacing really is everything. Because in Resi 4, like, particularly, there's never a dull moment. Like, I could argue maybe the Ashley section.
No, this is like God of War levels of...
Like, there's something happening
This is a
constantly.
blockbuster movie.
Yeah. And it's just... And it can get so wild and over the top, and there's always something new happening. And that's not always a set piece. It might just be a new interaction or a new mechanic or a new weapon or anything.
Speaking of new mechanics, do you ever go back to the boat and the lake?
No, you don't.
What?
It was just
why
made for
even
that.
do it?
I liked it. It was a good little...
So did I. I mentioned it to you the other day. Like, oh, I'm really glad it finally opened up.
Yeah.
I couldn't see I think I would have started whining pretty quickly if they hadn't opened it up like that. And I did all the little side stuff.
Yep. And then they close it.
But then they close it.
And they open it back up, close it, open it back up. That kind of goes through that little cycle. The only time that you kind of finally got, okay, we're finishing now, is when you get to Act 3, the island. It's like, okay, we're doing the island now. We're going to wrap this game up. And that's kind of the most funneled you get. But otherwise, it's kind of that open, close. Like, you have that section you were talking about right before you play the Ashley segment, where you just have a bunch of different rooms you can go down in the central
I like
hall.
that section a lot.
Yeah, it's just great moments like that.
But that was very different because that was really one environment. You have 3 little objectives. There's no reason to adventure in there. You're just going to press this button, press that button, press this button. Whereas there are small side objectives in the lake. It looks like the game is about to open up and you're now going to have, like, this is going to be a hub area. Like the dock you go into is set up, it looked to me, to be a hub area for some broader missions. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I might need to go to this place and go back to that first place. And then they just funnel you right back into the castle. And there's not a ton of things to do to give you reasons to backtrack and open it up. Yes, it opens up. You get the train that brings you back, but there's just like a chest that you can go open. There's not a reason to open up. It's sort of a, I don't know.
It's just a side quest, a way to keep
illusion.
your side quests, open throughout the whole time, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it was never meant to be, right? It's a remake of Resi 4, and that game is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 done. It's I don't know. Interesting point. I did not consider that. I do like the more open section though. It's raining. You're just kind of going about, find a gold chicken egg. Yeah, this is great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I like that a lot. My favorite so far has probably been the hedge maze. I like the hedge maze a lot.
I hate the hedge maze. I like it, but I hate it. It's so tense. Hard. Yeah, it's just tense.
It's very tense. It's so good. And then just before that, there was another maze with or maybe it was just after that. I can't remember. With another bug enemy that attaches to their back.
Oh yeah, that's good. Back.
And that's got similar moments like the shadows on the wall, and you're just in really cramped claustrophobic spaces without Ashley. It's just you at that point. So yeah, before the hedge maze, But yeah, it's just the music is really disturbing and droning, and it's claustrophobic, and these are new enemies. But then it opens up to a giant throwing boulders.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun, but it's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, it's
giants with boulders.
This has less nonsense than the original too. So it's like,
really,
dude, in the original,
I never played the original.
In the original, there's an entire section in the castle where he has a giant underground basement full of lava and like big huge contraptions trying to knock you off of this little mini pathway through his lava dungeon. He has a giant clockwork mechanical version of himself that chases you in a quick time event.
All right. Is there anything like that in 2 Resident Evil?
No.
Is Resident Evil 2 the most grounded?
I mean, 1 is probably the most grounded.
A lava pit really
1
really gets wild.
No, that's Resi 4.
Oh, and
that's the original Resident Evil 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the original Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, like the original Resident Evil 4 is even more like.
And those alligators.
Yeah.
Were the alligators replaced by that, like the thing that's in the, I don't know, the like waterworks, and you've got to freeze it? The section we were talking about earlier.
No, that was from the original as well.
Okay.
In fact, this game doesn't add much. It removes quite a bit, and we'll talk about that. I like it, but
so far it's great. I like the more grounded nature of Resident Evil 2. That's really all I have to go off of. I played 5 back in the day. I have played 2 and now 4. I also played the original 4 back in the day, but I was like 9 or 10 or something.
That was a long time ago.
Long time ago. What I appreciate most about this game consistently are the moments without giants and like
except the first El Gigante. That's a really well built up moment.
It is really good.
It's really well built up.
You find the
skull.
No, I don't read a lot of them, but for some reason in many games, but I found myself reading journal entries a lot in this game. You find the journal entry for the people that are raising.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And that I thought really helped contextualize it.
Yeah.
But then
there's 3 more in the game.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
I like it.
That's pretty weird to me.
It's definitely, I mean, Resi 4 is where the series really upped the B-movie ante.
Yes.
You know, like, we are going to just go crazy with big ideas. Giant Bugman, and it's great. It's, like, right up my alley.
That's
like,
where I am now. He hasn't revealed his face yet, but... oh, yeah, the Bugman throws you down into the cellar. I did that with that guy that's chasing you through the like,
you're waiting for the elevator
shafts. Yeah, you're waiting for the elevator, and now I'm gonna go back to encounter the Bugman.
Yeah,
but I mean, I like the really weird stuff, like the big guy that's following you around in the beginning. You see him 2 or 3 times.
Oh yeah, the village chief.
Yeah, but then a scorpion. He becomes a scorpion. That for some reason registers as more plausible than the giant or
dude, when he's just swinging along the
flies
rafters,
are weird to me.
Oh, I love it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I played the original. I was just expecting all this, but it's very much.
Well, I knew stuff like the alligators. Like, the alligators seem very weird and out of place.
Well, I mean,
and also they're ugly. What the heck are they?
The whole section where he like jumps through lasers to get to Salazar's throne room or whatever.
I think they put it back.
They did. Well, yeah, we'll talk about
DLC.
separate ways, which it fits Ada much better, honestly. But we'll talk about the removal and the stuff.
I just saw a death scene with her going through the lasers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
I bet it's great.
Gets her head cut off.
I bet it's great.
But it's all you see is she stops, like she's pretty stunned. And then you just see this like line of blood very slowly drip, and then it cuts. That's it. That's the death scene.
I love it.
Nothing gruesome. It's just
classy.
This little. It's quite classy actually. Yes.
Yeah. That's really good. Really quick, I want to do some interesting comparisons between these 2 games. And the first one is that Dead Space 2 feels way more like Resident Evil 4 than Dead Space 1 does.
Mm-hmm.
Way more. And that's crazy to me because everybody talked about how Dead Space was just Resident Evil 4 in space.
Dude, I'm opening another beer, man. I am here to have Oktoberfest.
Go ahead.
We have. I'm gonna cut you off real quick. We have one from Infamous Brewing. They're here, right?
Texas.
Austin. Yeah, they're from Austin. They're all Marzen styles, okay? Or the first one was a Belgian festival style. These next two are both Marzens.
While you're pouring that, I will continue. And I think it's interesting that Dead Space 2 and RE4 are very much kill the enemies and progress through the area. Kill the enemies and progress through the area, right? The horror comes through the way the enemies move toward you, how you're having to manage. Like, I mean, how genius was Resident Evil 4, the original? Just have these slow-moving, slightly tanky enemies getting slowly closer to you. No health bar. You're not quite sure when they're going to die. And maybe as they're approaching you, you use your last bullet and their head explodes into another, giant thing. Like, it's just the tension building, and it's just all of, I think of Dead Space 2, right? When you think you've managed to defeat all of the enemies in a space, but then all the air gets sucked out, and now you can't hear any of them, and there's some coming behind you, but you don't know that. You can't hear anything now. It's always the tension from the combat and progressing through the space. Dead Space 1, you mentioned this, I mentioned this, and then I went back to play the original, and the original's like this. It's way more, especially in the early stages, about progressing through the area with the blocker of enemies. You're very rarely locked into a space with enemies.
You can skip combat a lot.
And, one of the best examples is when you turn on the, the big spinning thing. I forget what they call it. The big spinning thing, it's like, all right, now that all the air is sucked out, and it's quiet. And in a moment like that, Dead Space 2 would then lock all the doors, and then there's just a bunch of things plowing into the room. You finish them off, and there's 4 more that you didn't see coming down. But now it's, there's no sound.
Ooh, this one's sour.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no sound, and you have to run through because this giant fulcrum is this giant arm is just spinning around, and you have to kind of time it to move through it. And Dead Space 1 in one of the safe nooks, there's going to be a necromorph. As you start running, there's a necromorph that starts running toward you at the same time. And so you have to be smart enough to run back so he dies from the thing. Just little moments like that really make it feel more like the original Resi games, where especially I think the remake of 2, which obviously hadn't come out yet. But I think of the way that it's about, do I choose to waste the ammo to kill this enemy so I don't have to deal with them again? Or do I shoot them in the leg and run past them, knowing I'll have to come back through this way a couple more times? Like, would it be more efficient to use that in keeping them alive? And, there's a bunch of enemies, I can't deal with this. We'll shoot them once with the shotgun so they all fall over so I can just run past them and put this puzzle piece in place. I don't know, it feels a lot more similar to that to me.
I was looking for moments where the objective is the point, and that does not seem to be the case. So far, Chapter 11, I can't tell you one point where the objective is not there to facilitate the combat, whereas the objective is the whole point. In pretty much, from what I remember, it's been a month now since I played
really
it.
Until the end, like the end, there's a couple locked door moments where you just have to kill all the enemies.
Yeah.
And
but the goal is the whole point, and the enemies are there to prevent you from completing your goal. But the goal, as you mentioned, in Resident Evil and Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space 2, is just to kill things.
Yeah. And they find amazing, interesting ways to vary that up and keep it tense. And again, the pacing, there's always something new. You're never fully in control. Dude, Dead Space 2, the runner ones that peek over, peek around the boxes.
The little raptor ones.
And the only one ever charges at you at once. But when they charge, they just are full sprinting toward you. Every room with them is so perfect.
Dude, I hate them so much.
Dude, they're great. And when you get a couple of them down, you start pulling off their limbs and just pinning them all to the wall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God forbid one of them points their head out like they're going to come get you. but their friend is the one that comes.
That jumps over and starts. Oh, dude, it's so tense. You know, moments like that where the combat is the tension. Dead Space 1 has those moments, absolutely, but not with anywhere near the same consistency as 4 and 2 focus on those moments. Again, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it is at all. It's a very interesting comparison that came up playing these two games back to back.
Do you have a preference?
I've noticed that I tend to like games like Resi 4, Resi 8, and Dead Space 2 more than the alternative. However, among all of them, Dead Space 2 is my favorite, but my second favorite would be Resi 2 Remake. Yeah. So, like, really, I guess no. I would probably lean more towards the action-y ones because that's the kind of games I like to play. But I don't know, man. Like, they're both really fun, you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, if I'm just thinking about it, I would say I prefer the... slower is the wrong word, but
objective focused.
The Dead Space, the Resident Evil 2. But looking at these two games, I would probably, I won't say this definitively, but I would probably play RE4 again before I play Dead Space again.
That's true for me in this case.
But
I would play Dead Space 2 before any of them.
Before most games.
Yeah, before almost any other game.
But there is also way more variety in Dead Space 4.
Dude, yes, let's make that happen.
Keep
speaking into existence.
There's variety to be had in multiple playthroughs of Dead Space, but I think there is a better kind of variety.
It's a little more dynamic, right? The objective doesn't change, but maybe your placement or where you're at or how you approach it or what weapon you have, especially with New Game Plus, it's going to change, right? And the encounters are so fine-tuned in both of these games, though, that really both of them are great to replay. Dead Space 2, I think, perfected the New Game Plus of a survival horror game, in my opinion. I was not ready to dig into this. But basically, let's see if I have it in my notes here. I don't think I do. Let me just make sure, though. New Game Plus. I don't have it in here. But basically my breakdown of that is in Dead Space 2, so in Resi 4, every difficulty, you can, like, I can start my normal playthrough with all of my guns and New Game Plus it as a hardcore playthrough. That's what I did, right? Which is fun and great. It kind of just keeps, you know, I'm more powerful. I'm not just mowing through everybody. Like, it does start to get more difficult near the end still. Dead Space 2, you can only New Game Plus on the difficulty you did it on, which is really interesting because I think each difficulty offers a unique experience. The two hardest difficulties in particular, one of them just be very hard enemies and making you play way more conservatively than how aggressively you'd play on the lower difficulties. The other being kind of a mastery of the game itself, where you only have 3 saves for the whole game. Now, that was in Dead Space 1 as well, but what Dead Space 2 improved on was the action aspect, because again, like you said, it's more fun to re-engage with the more dynamic action aspects, because they change with the difficulty. The objectives don't necessarily change so much. It's the combat that's changing. How you're progressing through isn't changing in the same way. I just think it works better. That was a terrible breakdown. I didn't have it prepared, but I've written it out before elsewhere. And I just think it's probably the most fun to New Game Plus through.
We've talked primarily about Resident Evil 4.
Yes, that's fair.
I think that's because we both prefer this one to Dead Space.
To Dead Space 1.
Yeah.
To Dead Space 1.
To
yes.
Dead Space 1. Yeah. This is an amazing game. I'm so happy.
Oh, it's so good.
I loved every second of it. But even with the things I'm not so hot on in Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4 is so good.
It's just unapologetically one of the best games.
So good, man.
I'll rush through some of these then so we can kind of get into talking about each game individually.
Well, what about weapons? We've talked a lot about weapons. I just want to know what you used in both of them.
What I used in both of them? Okay, so in Dead Space, obviously the plasma cutter was one of my main, but I used a lot of the buzzsaw. What is it? The Ripper. The Ripper blades. Used a lot of the Ripper blades.
I like it.
And then I had in my inventory just for, I wanted to see how all the guns worked and stuff. I used the contact beam a little bit. It was fun. I don't think I'd use it again.
Yeah, I've tried it once.
It's fun. They switched up the alternate fire. Is interesting choice.
What does it do?
It was the same thing. They just swapped which was primary, which was alternate. Not from the original, from the second game, I think. Okay. But one's the sustained beam and one is the like.
Oh, okay.
I like how I used that instead of saying a charged beam. But they did that, and then I also messed around with the flamethrower.
Flamethrowers, it's very good.
Way better than it is in Dead Space 2. I can tell you that for sure. Dead Space 2, it's a fine weapon, dude. I forgot how good that weapon is in Dead Space 1, especially now they have that like flame wall alternate fire for it. It's awesome. But primarily plasma cutter and ripper blades.
You probably had an easier time of it than I did.
Probably.
In our last playthrough, so we played this in 2020, I think. We played the first one, that is. And I said next time I play, I'm going to play with just the plasma cutter. So I did, and my goodness, it gets pretty difficult, but it is so fun to play with just the plasma cutter. I thought maybe it would get old eventually, not having that variety, being able to switch up the way I do things, but not having the variety to switch up the way I do things makes the variety of the enemies way more difficult.
Interesting. Yeah, that's another great aspect of Dead Space 2, because I mean, this Dead Space 2 had it upped the weapon game so much from the original Dead Space 1 that there are many weapons you could solo that game with on New Game Plus, Not all of them, but many of them. And one of them, of course, being the plasma cutter. Probably the most fun to play with through the whole game.
It's very good.
That's awesome.
And it helps. I don't know how I'd get through the original with just the plasma cutter because of the way they sort of tuned, evolved the kinesis ability.
Yeah,
getting it closer to Dead Space 2.
Yeah, it's in fact I would call it almost Dead Space 2 kinesis. I went back and played 1. It is far less useful, and you can't upgrade it in the original. So I mean, it's just really there to stun them more than anything else. Ripping the limbs off, the limbs don't even do what they do in 2, where they go forward. Really? Yeah, they just kind of come upward, and you can launch them at people, and they'll just kind of get bumped, as if you threw something else at them. So I
didn't realize that.
Again, I have that listed here. Dead Space 2's kinesis is much more readily usable as an action mechanic than a puzzle one.
It's a full-on weapon.
Yeah, Dead Space 1 uses it more for puzzles until you get to the remake, which tweaked it to be more like 2. In fact, one of the big things I'm going to talk about with Dead Space here is, and I'll mention it right now, is it has so much from Dead Space 2 in it. It took a lot of the stuff Dead Space 2 did and brought it to Dead Space 1. Unapologetically. The upgrade system, the kind of things you could... not the upgrade system, but rather the kinds of things you can upgrade in a tree. And then even expanded on what Dead Space 2 did with that, giving you multiple... integrating the exploration, the new focus on exploration to you want to find this because there are now 3 special upgrades in every tree, and you can only find them if you explore the world, and things like that. So,
and then did you get? Did you do a lot of the side content?
No, I didn't. I didn't do a lot of it. There was one I missed that I wanted to do, and I forgot it. And by the time I could go back, I was like, I'm just gonna finish the game.
I want to know what you get when you get all of the rigs.
Yeah.
From the dead crewmates. I want to know what's
me too.
Back there.
Me too.
But I didn't do that.
So I'll just wrap this up here. Interesting comparisons. Progression is obviously really key to both of these games. That's why New Game Plus runs are so fun. Keep your progression going. Keep getting, the higher tier of weapons. There's always something worth upgrading. It feels good to dominate with a fully upgraded kit. Dead Space 1 Remake actually wins here since there isn't a set of best versions of a given gun for a given ammo type. Typically in Resi 4, it's like, okay, well, now I have the better rifle. I'm going to sell my old rifle and start upgrading the new better rifle. Dead Space 1, it's like, oh, well, I'll fully upgrade the plasma cutter this run. I'm just going to use a different weapon this run and fully upgrade that and maybe one other weapon. again, Dead Space definitely beats Resi in that regard, because my New Game Plus run, I didn't change my weapons at all. I just kept upgrading the ones I had. There's really only one or two decisions to make there. So, but even so, it is still fun to continue upgrading all of your gear, and because at the end of Resi also has that special unlock if you upgrade everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the submachine gun, it pierces through 5 enemies, which is just insane. So yeah, it's great stuff.
That's pretty wild. There's another upgrade you can get also by buying an exclusive ticket. I'm not doing. It feels like you need multiple playthroughs to get even 2 of those. Really.
Yeah, I only unlocked the pistol on my first playthrough for the full. Like I got everything for the pistol. The Blacktail, I forget what it's called, but
the second pistol you get.
It's the one you get at the castle, I think.
Yeah, you find.
I replaced the Punisher
with
something. I replaced the Punisher with it.
I forget. There's like 2 military issue looking pistols.
They're called the Black.
And then there's Blacktail. 2. There's like a revolver and like a World War II pistol.
Yeah, the Luis's pistol, his like the one with a clip. I just used the black military issue one.
That does not get a sight. You couldn't put a sight on it?
No sight on it.
Yeah, that's the one I'm using.
It's great. It's probably my favorite weapon in the game.
I still am kind of missing the rate of fire and the ammo capacity of the previous one.
This
one's way stronger, but I find myself so I had that one fully upgraded, and now I've got this one almost fully upgraded. I still I wish I had more ammo.
Yeah.
And could reload faster.
Yep.
Even though it's like twice as strong.
It's so nice.
You don't need that much damage to stun them in the knee.
Yeah, knee or
So I don't know.
Get that suplex, baby.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I go through another playthrough, I might just keep the first pistol, or try one of those side ones.
Yeah.
Side ones. The alternative ones.
Yes.
I might try one of those, but
the Red 9 is what I'll probably try.
Yeah, Red 9 exactly.
It looks fun.
Can you get different suits in Resident Evil 4?
Oh, of course. There's so many. You get the classic mobster one. You get all that stuff.
That's all I want. I want to play Dead Space 2, or Resident Evil 2 again. I purchased the DLC both on PC and on PlayStation because as soon as I put it in, I don't want any delay. Putting on those noir suits.
Yes,
baby.
Amen. Hallelujah.
It should be default skins, dude.
Yeah, it's so true. Really quick here. We're getting close to the end, so we can just dig into the games individually. But Kinesis and Kicks are both. This is a really interesting comparison, especially with the remake, Dead Space remake. The Kinesis and Kicks both integrate really well with how you're using your weapons. So in Dead Space, it asks if it's worth tearing off a spike first so that you can save ammo, right, to just launch their spike at them, or deleg them to slow them down and focus on someone else because now they're crawling toward you. RE4 asks if you want to go for that high damage headshot or to hit their leg for a brief incapacitation and hope for that suplex. Give a little bit of invincibility in the middle of all of them, and get through.
And knock a few down.
Dude, if you get the kick, just knock like 4 of them down. Mm-hmm. So it's a fun trade-off. It's how am I using my weapon?
Some of them to the top of some stairs and do a kick on one of them.
Yes.
Knock them all down. Throw a grenade down there.
Dude, it's just such a great system, and the level design for both of these games are best in class.
Dead Space 4 gotta beat.
Dude,
Dead Space 4. I mean,
Resi 4?
All the Dead Space. That's why. Goodness gracious. Resi 4.
Yeah.
The Resident Evil games are just masters.
One of my favorite sections in Resi 4 is the 2 chainsaw ladies. And there's that whole outside area. And, if you run out a specific way, because there's Ganato's coming in the door, like, I'm going to run out the back door. So you run out the back door, and there's a locked fence. And you're like, oh, no. And you start kicking it like 3 times, trying to get the lock broken or shoot it, just to get through. And then you have this interesting, intricate loop you're trying to lead these people through so that you can manage just how many there are.
I always like... that's so obviously a combat arena. I always appreciate the ones that are a little more subtle.
A little more subtle.
The interiors, typically.
Oh, the interiors. My favorite one in the interiors is, I think you did the section where you're in the castle. It's around the garden area. and you're introduced to not introduced, but you meet one of the red skull, like bull skull wearing guys who are like, they like, oh God, no, and then like it makes the heads explode of the other ones with the new big worm thing, where you sneak into that room and there's just a bunch of enemies and he starts running away, so you have to try to like kind of chase him and deal with him, but if you don't deal with him fast enough, they're all gonna become powered up, but they're all trying to gang up on you, so you can't deal with him. And you just have all these interesting decisions. There's a lower section and a higher section. Yeah. That's, again, that was a good brilliant
one. I also really liked, though it's, I don't know, because it's such an open space, maybe the level design isn't as interesting, but with one of those same enemies, he lowers this bridge, and you've got to fight a bunch of guys.
Oh,
in this
yes.
Little, like museum place. I liked that a lot. Of course, the maze. The hedge maze. It's just great. You got the dogs at first, but then
they come and grab Ashley.
The people are introduced into the mix, and then dogs start jumping through the hedges.
Oh, dude,
good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'll come back to these things about remakes later. Let's just dig in so we can talk more about Dead Space. You want to geek out for a second?
Yes.
I have just a geek out section here. So the stomp is, while not as efficient as in some other incarnations, still just feels and sounds. They took the Dead Space 2 stomp, really.
Yes, however, I was pretty disappointed with how little damage it does.
Because the enemies are so much tankier now. I mean, and this is a huge I have it. It's literally the top 2 points I have about the remake are exploration and the tanky enemies.
They're hard.
I went back to play Dead Space 1 and the original, and dude, enemies go down like butter. But they're way faster. You know, like a necromorph may drop out of the ceiling and like just start rushing you. Like they are just charging toward you, but one or two shots from the plasma cutter will at least stagger them. But they're charging toward you. This one, their runs are much slower and more deliberate, but they're not going down on one or two shots. Like, they're not going to get stunned. Like, you need to unload on these guys. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what has made the stomp less effective.
In Dead Space 1, you said this just a moment ago, you were considering, do you want to blow an arm off, take the limb, and shoot them with it, or blow their legs off to slow them down so you could focus on someone else? That's not an option. You have to do both, and they're still crawling at you.
Yes, it's just wild.
It's quite difficult.
Yeah, they're really tanky, for better or worse. They're just really tanky. But, you know, in the original, you can stomp. Like, oh, I bet you they're close to death. Let me just try to stomp them before they can bite me. Nope, don't even try. Like, they're just going to get you.
Every time. I tried many times.
Yep, they will get you every time.
Every time they'll get you.
But they did add, you know, stomping to get items back into the remake. So at least the stomp has some use. You can...
I'd get mad and I'd continue stomping until
me too.
And then there goes like
your whole
of my health.
It's just gone.
Because I'm stubborn.
I would do the same thing. Exactly the same thing. It's so good though. I do like the... Like, it's a Resi 4 style tension, right? The tankier enemies, right? They're just, oh, he's not going down. Like, you know, they just approach you. You know, Dead Space feels much more, the original just feels much more jittery, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's much more, like, you don't have time to be afraid of them, like, slowly encroaching on you. They're on top of you right now. You heard them, they're on top of you. So it's much more, I don't know, that gut jittery reaction. I loved how much more useful kinesis was. I mean, that's just a flat improvement for me. The fan blades, I love throwing the fan blades.
And those big pipes you pull off the wall.
Dude, yeah, just ding. And of course the what is it? Ragdoll physics of just a necromorph hanging there.
Yeah.
Always looks great. Especially in the new engine. Did you watch any videos of the force gun being used?
No.
Okay, we're going to get right after this. Okay. But basically, so along with the DLIM system, they added that system that, like, when you shoot them, like, parts of their flesh, you can see the undercut of their flesh. The force gun literally rips all their flesh off. Oh my God. and so they are just skull and muscle, and they start running toward you. It's awesome, dude. Whoever.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of work,
dude. I can't imagine how much work it was. Little flaps of flesh hanging down.
Oh my goodness, I got to see it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do the foreskin next time.
Now you have to. Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, it's already one of the best looking games on the console.
Oh, easy. In fact, the next note I have is just lights, reflections, lens flare. Give me more, please. That's my whole note. It's so good.
Dude, I'm playing. Okay. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, and certainly you've listened to me ramble a lot. I am a stickler for performance. I played both of these on fidelity mode and cannot tell one bit. They are gorgeous. The what is it called? Ray casting. It's not ray
tracing.
Ray tracing. Goodness gracious, what a loser. The ray tracing in both of these, more so Resident Evil. There's more places to be super reflective, but the ray tracing here is amazing on console, and they're both running. If they're running at sub 60. I can't tell. As someone who is a huge stickler, I don't even know what compelled me.
And we played both on PS5.
Yeah. I don't know what compelled me to play Dead Space, which is the first one of the two that I played, on
Fidelity.
Fidelity. Because I usually just immediately, as soon as I turn the game on, I put it in performance. But I didn't for some reason. I saw it. I toggled it. I was like, no, whatever. I'm going to try it. This looks like a gorgeous game. I'm going to try it. I couldn't tell. I forgot.
Beautiful.
I forgot.
Beautiful.
Same thing here. And then there's another setting you can upgrade, or you can bump up in Resident Evil that's not just fidelity. You can increase the hair physics.
What?
Yeah. So I later increased the hair physics and still can't tell.
That's amazing. I love that that's a specific setting. Do you want more fidelity for your hair?
I don't know if you know this, but when that technology was first introduced, I believe it was The Witcher 3. And it broke computers.
Wow.
It's like if you try to ray trace on your 970.
Yeah.
That's what was happening.
Yeah.
When they introduced hair physics.
That's
in
amazing.
Witcher 3.
I always remember those documentaries from early Pixar years, like Monsters Inc. and like the early 2000s, where they talk about how difficult hair was always the hardest. Like, and having Sully get like wet in Monsters Inc., they said was probably the most taxing, difficult scene they had to animate, you know? And they said it continues. You look at The Incredibles and like just how much work went into the hair. It's amazing, man. My last little note here for under Geek Out stuff is my section I have here.
Okay.
Is just when Isaac, you get a sneak peek of Dead Space 2 Isaac. He talks more, right? He's much more involved, but he's not quite action hero Isaac. He is in Dead Space 2, which I like. I like they didn't go full Dead Space 2. But right at the end, when the boss, I forget the name, what they call it, but the big boss rises out of the final boss rises up, and you runs its tentacles along the side of the ground, it smashes and just slides the woman across the ground. When that happens, he's like, all right, you better be ready. This is all I've got left. You know, you're like, oh, he's coming. There he is. That's my boy.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Oh my God, it's so good, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I've rewatched that scene several times.
Good, as you
but
should.
The time between I'll be there and being there is like 2 minutes.
Yeah, dude. Oh, it's so
wild.
Good. Oh man, I love it. I love it so much. All that stuff got me.
I really hope this was successful enough for Dead Space 2.
Yeah, I mean and that one. I mean, you can see they took a lot of Dead Space 2 into this one. Mm-hmm. So,
and you know, he's not an action hero, but he's also not sort of the empty vessel he was in the original. He is not calling the shots per se, but no one's giving him orders in the same way that he was before. Yeah. He knows what
needs to be fixed.
He's the engineer.
Yeah.
He's not taking orders from the general on how to fix the ship. He's the engineer, so he's the guy in charge, though he does have someone to answer to. He's the one that's like, okay, we got to do this, and this. I'm going to go do it. And then everybody else is like, okay, well, I guess I'll do this then. He takes charge in a very different way. and while not an action hero, it feels better to be sort of more in charge. Also, if we ever get a Dead Space movie, I did just watch Mission Impossible before this.
The first one?
No, I'm sorry, the most recent one.
Okay.
Just before this, so it was sort of fresh on my mind, but this dude sounds a lot like Tom Cruise.
This dude,
I could definitely see Tom Cruise playing Isaac Clarke.
Yeah, it's that sharp delivery.
Oh, we got one more. We got one
do.
more. We have let's see. This is from Panther Island Brewing. The always early Oktoberfest. Panther is in somewhere in Texas. I don't know.
Fort Worth.
Okay, Fort Worth.
I just caught it right there.
I did like the sort of sour nature of the other one.
It was nice. I definitely prefer the first one. It was just simpler. Amanda, we were in the desert, Big Bend, and we were at a really cool little place we were staying in the desert. Full night sky, absolutely gorgeous. And Amanda's like, you know what I really want right now on this back porch? I said, tell me. And she's like, a Modelo. I just want a Modelo right now. I'm like, okay. So we went and bought some Modelo Especial and had some on the back porch under a gorgeous night sky. I'm glad that she had that. I'm glad for her. My guilty lawn beer is a Corona Extra with a lime in it, typically.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I prefer the Modelo.
Yeah, it's better. That's
sort of what I grew up on. We're in Texas. If you don't know, in Texas, it is legal for minors to have alcohol with their guardian or spouse, because you can get married at 17, I think.
If under certain
or
conditions,
18. You can certainly get married at 18.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're still not able to drink yet, but you can have alcohol in the presence of your guardian or spouse. So at 17 and 18, I mean, you were over having beer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't this weird thing. We wouldn't all get trashed. It was just
no. We're sitting around playing a board game, and each of us have a beer.
Yeah, and it's more like the Italians.
Correct. The proper way.
Yeah,
really.
Correct.
I think the proper way.
It is part of it's part of life. I have some. Since I played the original right after, I have some comparisons. We've talked about a lot of them already, so I won't take too long. But the biggest changes, right, that impact the gameplay the most are, of course, the tankier enemies and the more improved tool set to deal with them, the more Dead Space 2 weapon and upgrade path and kinesis. But the other is exploration, right? Exploration is a huge focus. They want you... Of course, they made it less, moving from chapter to chapter on the tram. The tram is, you just take the tram and move back to a different part of the map, and there are side quests now. You can go back through. They have a security clearance. They've replaced power nodes with security clearance. So when you get higher security clearance, it's like Metroid. Oh, I have a new weapon. Let me go back to a place I've been. And, I remember there's a door 3, a security clearance door 3 back there. I wonder what's behind there. And there might be a schematic that, now I can... find the second special upgrade. Now I have the second special upgrade path for the plasma cutter. All your weapon upgrades tied to exploration. They want you to be exploring more. Just a huge focus of the game. In my opinion, it didn't change too much. It didn't change as much for me as I think it would for others.
No, I'm someone who used power nodes on every door last playthrough. I did not skip a door. I would always... Under no circumstances would I be short a power node. I'd always have one in my inventory, so I could open those doors. Some doors had 2 power nodes behind them, plus a bunch of items. So I'd always use it. And by the end of the game, now, granted, I did only use one weapon, but I had almost the entire suit upgraded except for the air. I only upgraded one spot for the air. That's totally useless. It shouldn't even be
correct there. We talked about that when we
I don't know why that's a thing. Anyhow, so aside from those slots, I had everything else upgraded on my suit and the plasma cutter fully upgraded, but I think I had 12 or 13 nodes by the end of the game.
Amazing.
Those could have gone into other weapons, but using them in the environment, I always thought was a nice trade-off. You talk about you talked earlier about the decisions you're making about do I want to sacrifice my health? You know, just like when I was fighting those big enemies. So I took some hits and then I was able to get a shot in a lethal shot. Took some more hits, another lethal shot. Well, using my upgrade resource for my essential resources, I thought was a pretty interesting trade. I don't know why people don't like the node locks so much. I thought they were just fine. And I actually appreciated them.
I like them too.
Here, there's only a few doors you need to backtrack to get to.
Yeah, there's really
most of them are directly in your path once you get the key card.
Yeah. It's the side quests that really push you back to certain areas. And I didn't really engage with them very much. I can see people do it. Now, the one benefit that does come from this, of course, is making it feel more integrated as an environment, which that was one of the best parts of the original, is the environment, you know, the atmosphere, all that stuff. So I do appreciate that, making it all actually connected. Again, it doesn't actually affect how you're moving through the game, but, you know, Jacob Geller talks about, like, just knowing that it's there and that it's, you know, that I can move back through that space. It does help immerse. What does not help immerse, in my opinion, is not having a silent protagonist. I think that this game has a pretty different tone from the original. The original is much more atmospheric. I was much more tense during the original. Having Isaac talk through everything definitely moves away from that. And the characters, because he's more useful, the other character specifically, what's his name? I have it written here. Hammond. Hammond is an absolute moron in this game. That's not fair. He's a little helpful, but like, in the original game, he's very in charge. No, we're going to get this figured out. Like, okay, you do this, you do this. Sorry, he's the captain. He's leading, you know? In this game, he just feels a lot more useless because of that. Really, the story and characters overall, I felt more generic. There was less for... And I think that's not too fair. The original doesn't have some groundbreaking story or anything, but there's a lot more for me to fill in, I think, because Isaac was silent. And so when they're filling in these details... you have this exchange of tone that happens that, I don't know, they can't take Isaac too far yet, right? Because he's only being affected by the marker dramatically over time. And so I feel like all it does is compromise that quiet tension in a lot of ways. And that's just feel. It's hard for me to tell you why or how without thinking about it longer. But I did notice it pretty... Like, that is one change I didn't like so much. The rest all felt just different and new and cool. It's a new way to play the game. Or just, yep, this is Dead Space. That's the only one I was like, I don't really know how I feel about that one.
Interesting. I did not put too much stock into that, but I see everything you're saying.
It's not enough for me to go back and play Dead Space 1 original over this one. Really at all. Too much, though.
Yeah, I can't see myself doing that.
Because Dead Space 2 does what the original Dead Space 1 would do for me in lieu of this remake anyway. So it's really just the atmosphere that's changed, and it's not dramatic enough for me to care too much. Just a lot of the Nicole stuff. Yeah. I was like, I'm not really buying any of this. Some of the voice acting's a little weird too.
Her voice acting specifically is
her, and then the traitor, forget her name, but she has a couple moments as well. The traitor, the hacker lady.
Oh, the other woman that's on the ship with you.
Yeah.
I forget her name, but I liked her well enough.
Yeah, she had a couple moments that were really weird, but yeah, overall, all of the Nicole stuff felt like much weaker. In the original, like, I distinctly remember the moments Nicole showed up in the original. This one, I'm like, oh, hey, it's Nicole. Like, whatever.
Yeah, she was pushed a little too far as a storytelling device.
Correct.
In this game.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
So we talk about tanky enemies. There's a couple little things here. Way fewer ambushes. A lot more way fewer like pop-up ambushes. Like, oh, surprise, I wasn't really dead. And a lot more like, oh, there's one behind you. So many. I got so mad after like the fourth time, I'm like, I am never. It got to the point where I'm looking ahead of me. One shows up and I just turn around immediately. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this.
Okay.
You are like, they are so many from behind. It was not a bad frustrated. It was just kind of like, okay, you got me enough. I get it. And by the end of the game where they're not really doing that anymore, I'm still wasting time turning around. I'm like, I know you're back there, like a crazy old man. I thought about that a lot.
Dude, there's a puzzle in this game that I spent so long on because it was not telegraphed.
You talking about the electrical pathways on the antenna?
Yes.
Dude, I was so
infuriated
dumb
when I finally looked it up.
Yeah, I looked it
Because
up too.
It's nothing is super gamey here. You can't really tell anything about the
and
UI.
that is the gamiest thing.
Yes, it's such a gamey mechanic.
They should have just taken it out.
Yeah.
They should have just taken it out.
Completely removed it. There's these little satellite nodes you're putting into a wall, but they have just like 2 or 3 directions highlighted in the center of them. They're all laying around, and it takes a while to notice that those highlighted segments are different. They just look like a part of the machinery.
Correct.
I didn't notice at all.
Yep, didn't notice.
Infuriating.
Okay, yeah.
So dumb.
The another thing it's not telegraphed as well because of the more realistic tone and atmosphere is it was hard for me to tell sometimes which necromorph was the strong necromorph versus the normal necromorph. I ran into that issue a few times to the point where I didn't even notice they had introduced the stronger necromorph until after they'd already introduced it. I was like, why? Is everybody just tankier now?
Yeah, I don't recall that. The black ones, right?
Yeah, but they're not like in this one they just kind of have some different armor on or whatever. Yeah, it was pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I didn't know. If it happened to me, I didn't make note of it.
I eventually figured it out, but one thing that does work is how much darker this game is. Like actually physically darker. Like your light is everything because you cannot see. And there are many moments in the game they have these new node like swap choices. So you need to turn on the door. But to turn on the door, you have to turn off the lights, or you have to turn off the air. And you have to pick your poison, essentially. And if you turn off those lights, you can't see anything. And your flashlight has a small zone. And if there's like 4 behind you, you'll never know. Because you need the audio. You need the audio. I did not play with surround sound for a while. And I was like, I can't do it.
Dude, I got some nice gamer headphones.
Nice.
Someone gave me an Xbox with whatever the current iteration of the Xbox headphones are. I don't know what gamer headphones are, but I know they're different, and it's very, very nice.
And when I put those headphones on, the sections worked much better for sure. But that's a great little ad there. Obviously, they changed the 0G. Like now it's not the leapfroggy thing, which never really bothered me too much. But it's obviously control layout, blah blah blah. We talked about all this.
Before we move too far, I want to talk about the flashlight.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned the flashlight is so small in this game, but it works and feels like an appropriate size.
Mm-hmm. Totally, I see where you're coming from. Yes.
However, this drives me nuts. The flashlight in Resident Evil 4 is like 4 times as big and still feels too small. It like doesn't control well because you're controlling his gun, not his flashlight. And there's a little bit of a lag there, and it all makes sense, but I feel like I'm more constricted by the flashlight in Resident Evil 4. I have such a hard time anytime he flicks it on. I'm like, damn it, I don't want to do this. It's really hard to me.
That's fantastic.
Even though it's way bigger.
Oh, I love it. You want to talk about Dead Space anymore? Got anything else?
I don't think I have anything else, man. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad more people are able to play it that may have missed it in the past or just able to revisit it. I'm so happy I got to revisit it this year.
Yeah.
I'm glad that there's a version of Resident Evil 4 that you enjoy. Because you don't like the original. Right?
I'm not a big fan of the original. We can, I can talk briefly about it. I don't like the original. It's my wife's favorite game, tied for her favorite. Well, no, she has since replaced it. She has a new favorite game, but it's right up there, top 5 for her.
What is that?
Death's Door. She's played it a few times now. She really likes it. But Baldur's Gate though is climbing up really high.
Dude.
She hasn't finished it yet though, so
When I put some more time, I had to take a break for these. We were gonna talk about another game. We don't really have time today, but we did play Amnesia the Bunker,
which is great.
Yes, definitely go play it. But I had to take time away from Baldur's Gate to play these 3 games.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back. Dude.
Yeah, it's good.
That, if I put a little more time into it, will likely be a contender for me.
I'm not. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not for me. It's just not my kind of game, but it is brilliant, and you should play it because even I'm playing it, which is saying something. So, I have a lot of respect for it. It's fantastic. It's just not the kind of game I usually play. So,
I mean, I've got 130 hours or something in Zelda. I'm still not finished. I'm on the last. I need to go get the last. Whatever they are, the last hero. I'm in the shrouded Sky Isle. It's still shrouded. I finished the castle stuff. They're like, go talk to more people around the world to see what you need to do next. And there's no prompt for like who to talk to or anything. So I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah,
I dropped in. I rode my scooter, dropped in, and now I'm gonna push my way through.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, I did it by accident, so it's possible.
I sent you 2 videos.
I didn't watch either.
Okay,
of them.
one of them, the boss in the fire. What is it called? What's the mountain called?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the fire boss. It throws rocks at you that eventually explode. You can attach those to things.
Yes, you can.
Then you can put it in your auto build inventory, and then you can attach it to a new item, bro, and then have that new thing be an auto build. So you just simply attach it to a board, just like a square platform, and it's a hydraulic press. It does hundreds of points of damage. You just drop it on top of people, and then also still explodes.
Oh my goodness!
Crazy. And then you can go higher from the ground. You can go higher than the sky towers if you just put a spring like this and a spring like this, and you'll be launched that way, super high into the air, and then just can basically float anywhere. Great, it's good stuff.
Oh, this game, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm still gonna finish it. Both this and Resident Evil 4. I am definitely gonna finish Resident Evil 4. I'm having a great time with it so far. Looking forward to seeing that big Bug Daddy.
Bug Daddy, yes.
Bug Daddy.
I find that, I guess before we keep going further, I don't like Resident Evil 4 for a couple of reasons.
Oh, yeah,
the original, because it's just far more frustrating to play these days. I think if you're gonna play it, play the Wii version so you can aim a little bit more conveniently. The game is tailored around you not being able to move when you aim, which is nice. It's good. That's not my issue with it. It's just more a lot of the BS quick time events. They get in the way so much, and they're insta death quick time events.
Also,
the only game I can think of that does them worse is Bayonetta 1. Like, it's just brutal.
Also, quick time events from that era, up to last generation, up to the beginning of the PS4, they were still like the solid giant color of the
with like a red aura around the button that's like flashing.
Yeah, so like you're playing on the GameCube and it's a giant green A with a red flashing light. And they also did that in the original what's it called? Last of Us. All the buttons were the color and shape of the buttons on the controller. So it looks like a super outdated UI.
That's so dumb. Yeah, and then I feel like the pace drags by the end in the original Resi 4 a lot more than in this one. In fact, the stuff they stripped out and moved to separate ways, and you can talk about the ethicality of doing that and making you pay for it for stuff that's in the original. It's pretty sure it is.
I don't know.
Pretty sure it is. $20. But
I don't know. I think that's a stupid discussion to have.
But for me, if they never added any of that stuff back in at all, I wouldn't care. The sections they stripped out were pretty meh. I didn't like. They were okay. And they just served to make the game a little longer. So
game's already long enough.
it's a long game. And this one just feels tighter overall to me. The fixed Ashley section is much better.
I actually genuinely liked the Ashley section.
For me, like I would have taken it out, but it doesn't get in the way. It's much better than the original, and
I also really appreciated knowing, I'm gonna come back here with Leon.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff you can't interact with. And that was a big part of the enjoyment as well.
Yeah.
Scoping out this environment before you get to go with Leon.
Yeah, it's fun.
And this is silly. Listen, this is silly. I can see what particular engines, some engines, do better than on other engines. And what the RE engine does better than pretty much any engine I've seen are like earth tones and wood. Dude, wood looks so good in the RE engine.
Resi 8. Oh.
Any of them. So the library section with Ashley.
Oh, gorgeous.
Looks amazing.
Yeah, just really pretty.
I don't know what it is, but no wood in video games looks better than it does in Resident Evil.
I can't argue with that. Absolutely.
Silly, I know, but it's true.
So I know I'm pretty much in the minority on that. I get it. I may not be...
You're also in the minority on Ocarina of Time, so who cares?
Yeah, correct. But I do... What this game does brilliantly is pretty much all seated in the original. I get that. And I'm not saying, this fixed everything. It was just the experience of playing Resi 4 that was the problem for me. Like, what is there is brilliant. You know, it's all so much the same level design and weapons. It's all there. I get it. And honestly, the village section of the original is pitch perfect. I love playing that outside of, again, the QuickTime events. But, it just drug. And there's a couple reasons I didn't like it. This fixed all of them for me, every single one, and improved in my opinion. So let's just I'm gonna geek out about it for a second.
Sure.
You have not reached my favorite line in the game yet, so I apologize for spoiling it. But there is Lord Sadler is towering over everybody, and he always says, like, we will ascend in our holy bodies, like very much like that. And the last line, as you take his staff and stab him in his little baby heart, little weird Death Stranding looking baby heart, he says, I'll give you a holy body, and stabs him. It's just everything I could ever want out of this. Like, it's a brand new line for...
Dude, but also the title, the splash screen.
Oh, right.
Everyone goes into the church. The camera is panning up. Helicopter shot. Where'd everybody go? Bingo?
Resident Evil 4. It's just amazing,
so
dude.
good, dude.
I mean, some of the lines they added are really great. They kept a lot of the classics, obviously, like Bingo, but I think you saw it where it's like Nighty Night, Nights, like just stupid, dumb lines like that. They knew what we wanted.
Yes, I like Leon a lot.
Oh, me too.
Quite the heartthrob.
Oh, agreed. That hair. Mercenaries, if you get it, just boot up like a level or two when you finish the game.
Is that multiplayer?
It's I don't think so, but it's free DLC.
Okay.
And it's just an arcade mode essentially. Whoa, it's just as good as it was, man. It's just super fun. You get to play. You unlock Krauser. One of my favorite characters to play as is Krauser. So he's the military guy who trained Leon.
Hopefully, there's a gold edition.
With it on cart and
with
stuff.
That and the other DLC. I still haven't picked up 8 yet, but there's a gold edition of that.
Yeah.
Which has everything. So I've waited long enough. I've borrowed your copy, so yeah. I guess I'll wait a little longer to see if...
Yeah, they just released separate ways this month, so... but with Krauser, his super is... He gets his monster arms from his second fight in the game, and you can just shred through enemies with them. He has a bow and arrow. It's a great mode.
Who's Krauser?
He's the guy who trained Leon, the military guy. The one you have that terrible QuickTime event knife fight in the original.
Do you meet him in this game?
Yeah. He gets much more fleshed out, actually.
All I saw was that little flashback in the elevator.
You're almost there. You have the minecart section, and then you're pretty much there.
Minecart section?
Oh, there's a minecart section. It's hilarious.
Where you're in a minecart shooting things
Yes,
from the
you are.
minecart.
Yep.
That's a video game.
Yep, that's a video game. However, it is nowhere near as drawn out as it is in the original. The original, it's so...
Did they make a joke of it?
What do you mean, like a joke of it?
We know this is silly. Leon knows it's silly. Let's lean into that.
It's so short they don't talk about it very much.
Okay.
Like they just kind of go through it and it's done. It is very silly though.
Like an Avatar when they're doing the recap and they're like, "Oh, look, the world's biggest canyon. Let's skip it." It's something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't think they call it out or anything. It's
Okay.
super short. It's very silly. It's a minecart section. But there's that. There's the clock tower gotcha is great. A lot of people love, to climb in the clock tower and wait for all the enemies to come. But if you do that, the floor falls out. And it's just, they knew. They have enough of those little moments for vets who are coming back. It's like, oh, we know. We see you. We see you. I love it. And then riding around the lake, I mentioned this was placed at just the right spot. You even noticed that as well. Just like, finally, okay, this is a little bit. It's very leisurely. You're just kind of...
Yeah.
The
you also
soft
mentioned
tone.
this, though. You said the game... Okay, so I'll just recap the whole conversation. I mentioned it's hard to really pinpoint, but I think this iteration of the RE engine is probably going to be its last. This game looks amazing, but by Resident Evil 9... they're still using this iteration of the RE engine. It's going to look like a pretty dated game, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned it's because of wet environments. I don't think that's the case.
Not because of wet
The
environments,
water
I think.
looks terrible.
Yeah, I like water in general. When he's wet, like the water itself. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's because of that, but that's what shows the age the most.
I don't know. Maybe I just didn't notice it. When he's wet or the walls
The
are
rain
wet
effects
or something.
look weird to me.
But the actual water itself, like the lake, the waves, it's like they use the original waves.
Yeah.
It looks so bad.
Yeah.
Everything else in the game looks pretty good, but it looks like it's right there. This is the cap of what the engine can
We're
do.
hitting it.
It's
We're
what
hitting
it
it.
seems like. I don't know.
I would agree with you for sure.
But dude, I was not prepared for those waves. It looks so bad, dude.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud
Yeah.
at how terrible they were.
Yeah, and really just, I know why they didn't. It's so iconic, but I would have just taken the whole, or remixed the whole Lake Monster fight. Del Lago.
Yeah.
Like, it's
it was
fine. You're talking about video gaming. There you go. That's it. But it's fine. It's a classic. It's one of the most memorable parts of the original. I get it. But, yeah, in fact, bosses were the only aspect I felt didn't improve much overall. That's what I'd probably argue. It's, even the radically changed ones, I just felt like bosses they're Resident Evil bosses. Done. Krauser 2, the second time you fight Krauser, is probably the only exception because that was such an excruciating fight in the original. Yeah, I hated that fight in the original. Much better, much more tense, much more fun in this one. The gotchas are less annoying.
I only have the second upgrade for the first upgrade for my suitcase.
Okay.
Do you think it's necessary to upgrade? Like, I feel like I'm doing fine.
Yeah, by the end of the game, you're going to want all of it. You're going to want all of it. I mean, because you're going to want a couple healings on, like, ready to go.
A couple what?
Healing items ready to go for... healing items, a lot more ammo. Like, you're just going to need a lot more by the end of the game.
Well, yeah, but I still have a ton of space. I haven't gotten, what is the 8x, 36 or something?
I don't know.
Whatever the second upgrade is. I have level 2. I don't have level 3 yet.
Okay. You'll want it. You'll
it
want it.
Feels like... but I'm also only using 3 guns. Were you using 4 guns?
Yeah, and I was using 4.
Okay. I'm only using 3.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the big thing.
Yeah, guns take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
So
we're using something with the Magnum ammo?
Yeah.
Each type of ammo?
Yeah, each type of ammo.
Yeah. I'm only using 3 because I don't know if this is the case, because I do find Magnum ammo around. Dead Space only drops the stuff you're carrying. I feel like I'm going to have a harder time getting the ammo I want if I'm carrying more weapons.
They balance it fairly well.
What uses Magnum?
The Magnum. Just a pistol, big pistol.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the big gun. Yeah, there's the base Magnum, and then there's the Killer 7 is the upgraded Magnum, which is cute, tongue-in-cheek Capcom reference. It's pretty good. I use the Magnum like on bosses and stuff. That's how I took down the ice guy, the one you have to freeze. Just I freeze him and unload into his stupid, ugly face. I don't have much more to say about it. We talked about this one a lot already. Luis is better characterized overall. As much as the parry feels kind of silly to watch, it's such a great addition to gameplay. Such a great addition to gameplay. Just the knife as a resource rather than just... Did
you say Luis was a great addition?
No, he's better characterized.
Oh.
He's much... The original... he gets his moments in this one. Quite a bit more. I like him a lot better. Really, most characters are better characterized. Krauser's way less... he's still pretty one-note, but he's way less obnoxiously a military person. You know? Like, he is that, but it's played as that is a flaw and something that, like people like this. And this is just one of them gone too far. Like, it's played more like that. So, yeah, they do a better job there. Really, I like everything about the remake better than the original. Including the parts they removed. There are a couple things that I thought were fun in the original that I don't really miss that much. Like, again, Salazar's giant tin automated, or net stone automated statue of himself chasing you. It's just silly.
That seems like it would be a touch too far for my taste.
Yeah, it's
because it's well grounded.
Yeah,
and then suddenly it's not just not grounded at all, but is in another universe.
Yeah.
What's going like?
And
that's very jarring.
It's very much the original coming through. You know, the original is a far campier, leaning into that campy feeling.
Then you get to 5, baby.
Oh my gosh, 5.
Dude, you fight a volcano. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
The boulder punch is iconic at this point.
Oh my god, I can't wait, dude. It's gonna be good.
Oh, I really hope they remake it. That would be amazing. They won't. They're gonna... If they remake anything, they should remake Code Veronica.
You don't think they'll remake 5?
I don't think so. Code Veronica is the one they should remake.
Or do a huge overhaul of the graphics. And updated mechanics. The level design and stuff is probably up to snuff. Let's see.
It's the pretty puzzle.
Already.
If they're gonna, you're talking about redoing 5, right?
Yeah.
What they need to do is retailer it for a single player experience. All of the worst parts of 5 come from it being designed with co-op in mind, and co-op not being that fun. That's, in my opinion, where most of the issues with 5 come from. And for following up 4, that did no favors. So, but yeah, Resi 5, I mean, a lot of these...
It's crazy that that's the game they went with after 4.
Yeah, man.
This is like one of the most important video games.
I would put it on
then there's
top 5 most important video games ever.
I don't know about top 5. That seems extreme without sitting down and talking about it.
It's up there, man.
But it's in the list.
Yeah.
It's on the short list for sure. It's
in
any conversation regarding that topic.
Yeah.
Top 5? I don't know.
That's fair. I like the story of how Devil May Cry.
You've got 3 being Tetris. What is it? Mario Brothers 3 or 2? Which one of the early?
We're talking about like super influential. I mean, Street Fighter
Dark
2,
Souls, Street Fighter 2. That's 4.
Yeah.
RE4 going.
I'd still put RE4 there. Yeah.
It's in the conversation.
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't jump straight to 5. But anyway, that's. I didn't think about that. It's wild to go from this to that.
I'm excited to play 6.
Yes.
I want to play it so badly.
Talking about having co-op in mind, that you should never even consider single player, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, that's it, man. That's all I have on these in my notes here. Like we talked about. I mean, RE4 is in my top 30. The remake, I really love it. It's an amazing video game. It's probably my second favorite Resident Evil game. There are days you could probably talk me into playing 8 more readily. But and you can tell which ones I like, right? Like Resi 2 is kind of the exception. Resi 2 remake. I like Resident Evil 4 remake. I like Resident Evil 8. I like the actiony ones quite a bit.
When was the last time you played 5?
5. I played the first quarter. I played the first quarter probably last year sometime with Amanda.
Okay.
It's just a hard one to finish. It's not as engaging, But it's again, the issue is if you're not playing co-op, there's so many sections that are just a pain working with the AI.
Sorry about that ring, by the way, folks. Also, it's been a long time since I played it. I did play it on the PS3 back in the day, a couple years after it came out. But nothing is nearly as iconic as 2 or 4. I couldn't tell you much about that game other than Wesker. Is that the first time Wesker is introduced?
Oh no, Wesker is in the first game, but he's the twist villain in the first game.
Does he come back until 5? Do you know?
2, 3, then 5, yeah.
Because I don't know anything about 3.
Yeah, me neither, and I don't think he's in 3.
Okay.
Technically, he's in.
Chris is. Chris.
Yeah.
Fine in Resident Evil 3, bro.
Yeah. I want to play Resi 3.
Yeah.
It looks so fun. And that's a short game, man. It's right up my alley.
Yes, I've considered picking it up towards the end of the year when I wrap this up and then go back to Baldur's Gate. I'm gonna at least play some more Baldur's Gate.
Yes.
I only just started Chapter 2.
I'm trying to finish Kingdom Hearts 3, finish getting footage there, and then I'm probably gonna play Evil West.
Yeah, I might pick it up.
It looks so fun.
I really, really want to.
I finished Lies of P recently. I thought about getting Lords of the Fallen, but I was like, I'm kind of soulsed right now. Lies of P took
Mario,
a lot
I'll
out
borrow
of me.
Mario when I'm done.
That'd be good. Yeah, and that'd be fun to hand off between me and Amanda. It is multiplayer, but just hand off between me and Amanda.
Dude.
It's
multiplayer on those games. They're silly to me.
Yeah, it's not.
Who knows? Maybe they've really. I mean, they're doing a lot with multiplayer. They're really leaning into it with this game. I still don't think it'd be for me.
No, it's more challenging, more fun with just single player. But man, I've played a little bit of it. It's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely delightful. The Piranha Plant second level, just alone, I was like, okay, I'm in for a treat. So
I watched a review from this guy. Watch Some Ordinary Gamers, Mia Mudahar. For Spider-Man 2. I think you're gonna like that game a lot.
I think I will too. It looks great. I will get it. It will happen. I need to play Miles Morales first. So actually.
Oh really?
Yeah. Next time you swing by, actually, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll be here tomorrow.
You'll be here tomorrow. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind bringing Miles Morales, I'd love to boot it up.
That's a short game.
Yeah, and it's set. Isn't it set Christmas time or something too?
I think so. That sounds right.
That'd be great. Yeah, just moving into Christmas time soon. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that way I can get.
Remind me.
Later
tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll be coming over around 10. So remind me for tomorrow.
Perfect.
Anyway, folks, that's about it. We're gonna wrap up some end of the year stuff on our own time and come back with another episode before the year is out for Prey. We are going back to the very beginning. We're doing that because things are changing in our life. We don't know what next year is gonna look like, but I want to wrap up with a proper Prey episode if we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here. If you've joined us, I know it's been a long while. It'll be a while till the next one. That's going to be the nature of Unpatched Gaming for the foreseeable future. But we love doing this. It's a lot of fun to us. So any one of you that's watching out there, thanks for checking us out. And we will see you in the next one. Don't forget to share what you like, what you love, with who you love.